My House of Horrors Chapter 601 to 610. 2 days ago. How come it feels like it was yesterday? Xiaoqing looked at the innocent Chen Ge, who had his arms raised above his head, and he felt a headache coming on. He did not know how to report this to the captain. Was it yesterday? It doesn't matter. As you can see, I'm looking for the culprit of the child trafficking case. Quote. You're looking for the culprit, so you trespassed into a private house and used a hammer to break the water pipe. Can you tell me what's the connection between these two things? Xiaoqing and the other officer lowered their guard when they saw Chen Ge. They knew that Chen Ge was not crazy. Even if his way of thinking was different from a normal person, he belonged to the chaotic justice camp. This is difficult for me to explain to you. If Captain Yan from the police station is here, he should be able to understand. Chen Ge first used Captain Yan as an excuse, and then his tone changed. But breaking other people's things is not right. I will compensate you according to the original price. He smiled apologetically at the middle-aged man, and the man was stunned. Compared to earlier, the man before him had changed so much. The rest of the people there could not understand Chen Ge's feelings. Using only a few hundred RMB to trade for a water ghost, this was definitely a profitable business. After communicating with the middle-aged man, Chen Ge was led downstairs by the two officers. You said you're looking for the culprit of the child trafficking case. Xiaoqing wanted to solve a big case, but his captain refused to let him go to the front line. He was always assigned to normal cases, and that made him quite annoyed. Yes, the rehabilitation school next to this area lost a child today. After my investigation, I realized that other than the teachers and students, there were other people at the school. I followed the trail, but the trail ended at this building. Chen Ge naturally would not tell the police about the water ghost, so he came up with a random excuse. Have you found the child? Yes, but the child suffers from a hereditary disease, and he has mental retardation. Combined with the trauma, I doubt we'll get anything out of him. Chen Ge carried his backpack and walked between the two officers. You seem to be very interested in this case. I'm more interested in you than this case. Little Qing asked for Chen Ge's number. He felt that if he followed Chen Ge, he would not have to worry about not having a big case to solve in the future. When he returned to the rehabilitation school, Chen Ge saw the two teachers being taken away by ambulance. They were found in a toilet cubicle. Their clothes were soaked, and their faces were twisted as if they had seen something horrifying. What was even stranger was that when the doctor examined their bodies, he found that there was a large amount of water in their lungs and throats. He didn't know what happened to them before they fell unconscious. Wen Wen's aunt was also at the school. The headmistress and another female teacher were apologizing to her, saying that the school had to be responsible for the bad guys sneaking into the school. This female teacher and the girl's aunt can both prove that I am a good person. Chen Ge very naturally stood with them, putting himself in the shoes of the victim's family. The police asked about the incident, and the bespectacled female teacher testified for Chen Ge. She said that there were indeed other people at the school at the time, and it was Chen Ge who broke the window to save her and the girl. However, to their surprise, when the police prepared to question Wen Wen's aunt, the woman was extremely uncooperative. She kept scratching her wrists and the back of her hands as if the slight pain could help her overcome her fear and calm her down. What are you afraid of? The killer's revenge. The police are right here. I promise you, we will definitely bring the culprit to justice. Little Qing had no idea what was going on. After comforting Wen Wen's aunt, he walked to the girl. The girl did not make a fuss or cry. She stood alone in the shadow by the wall. No matter who tried to hug her, she would attack that person like a madwoman. Officer, thank you so much. We do not wish to investigate this anymore. After a long time, Wen Wen's aunt voluntarily gave up on the investigation. Her face was pale, and she kept turning back to look at the deeper part of the rehabilitation school like there was a man-eating demon hiding in the dark corridor. You are willing to watch the culprit get away with harming a child. Little Qing did not understand what Wen Wen's aunt was doing. If we don't catch the culprit, he might attack other children in the future. This is not your problem alone, so please cooperate with our investigation. There's no need, there's really no need. Wen, let's go. Wen Wen's aunt reached out to hold the little girl's hand, but to everyone's surprise, the little girl was like a startled wild cat. She waved her hands, and her nails dug into the ant's arm, leaving bloody marks on it. She did not want anyone to get close to her. She curled up in the shadow, and the originally cute face twisted. Her eyes danced, and her chest rose and fell. She felt very unsafe. When, I'm your aunt. The woman wanted to go over, but she was stopped by the police. Is the child acting up? Do you have any medicine with you? Little Ching felt like this case was not as simple as it appeared. He smelled something unusual. The medicine is at home. I'll take her back now. Wen's aunt wanted to take the girl away by force, but the police would not let her go before they got to the bottom of the matter. Seeing that both sides were about to lose control, Chen Ge removed his backpack and walked over. He walked around little Ching and Wen's aunt to take out a bottle of shampoo from his backpack. What are you doing? This strange action attracted the attention of the teacher and the other police officer. Chen Ge ignored them. He squatted down 1 meter away from the girl and whispered to the child, "Your sister is inside the bottle. No one has harmed her. I know she has her reasons for doing those things. She is as kind as you are, but you are the real victims." Holding the bottle of shampoo, Chen Ge slowly approached the girl. "You were born as twins, so there should be a special connection between you and her. Try to call her, and you'll be able to get her response." The girl raised her hand suspiciously and touched the end of the shampoo bottle. Chen Ge had no idea whether the girl could sense her sister's presence or not, but he saw the girl slowly calm down. "No matter what happens, I will help you. I will stand on your side to help you." Chen Ge picked up the girl lightly. It's fine now, it's fine now." Wen's expression returned to normal. Her small hands gripped the end of the shampoo bottle. She seemed to be afraid of meeting strangers, and she buried her head in Chen Ge's shoulder. When Chen Ge picked up Wen, the black phone in his pocket vibrated. Chen Ge took out the phone, swiped the screen, and clicked open the message. Different choices will result in different results. The special visitor has left, and you've made your choice. Congratulations for lowering the hostility of Twin Water Ghost. 2-star trial mission, Twin Water Ghost activated. Please arrive at Eastern Zhejiang Dam before midnight tonight. Mission requirement: find the Big Sister's body alone. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. Salvage the body. When Chen Ge saw the mission details on the black phone, his eyelids twitched. This trial mission was different from what he had expected. The mission requires me to go to Eastern Zhejiang Dam alone to salvage the Big Sister's body. Isn't that a bit too difficult? Even with a professional team, it would take several hours to salvage the body, but Chen Ge only had 1 night. Without other people's help, without any tools or boats, he did not even know what the person looked like. Everything happened before Wen was born. How old was Wen's big sister at the time? Why was her body sunk into Eastern Zhejiang Dam? Many questions appeared in his mind, and the only person who could answer them was Wen's aunt. Wen's father also had a hereditary disease. It was obvious that he loved his daughter very much, but he was mentally handicapped, so he might not be able to remember what had happened back then. Wen's aunt was the only one in the family who had experienced that event and had normal intelligence and could communicate. The woman seems to be avoiding the things that happened several years ago. I won't get anything out of her directly. I need to come up with a solution. The Twin Water Ghost mission had been triggered. Based on the Black Phone's rules, if he failed the mission, the scenario would never be unlocked. Chen Ge did not want to lose this unique underwater scenario. Putting the Black Phone away, Chen Ge turned around with the girl in his arms. He realized that everyone's eyes were on him. "Why are you all looking at me? The bone in your backpack is poking out." Xiao Qing coughed and reminded him out of kindness. Hearing that, Chen Ge quickly turned back to look. The handle of the hammer was poking out from the zipper of the backpack. This hammer was a gift from the Black Phone. Initially, it was not so big, but probably because it had followed Chen Ge and had been hammered by too many specters and red specters, it had absorbed something from them. Its shape had become scarier, and its weight and length had increased. "Don't worry, this is a prop from the haunted house. I often walk alone at night, and I carry it on my back to scare the bad guys," Chen Ge explained awkwardly. I just don't understand why a child would like someone like you. Zhao King did not check Chen Ge's backpack. He looked at Chen Ge's sunny and kind expression, his innocent and sincere eyes, and the angel-like Wen in Chen Ge's arms. All of these formed a sharp contrast with the hideous spine hammer handle in the backpack. Actually, I'm very popular with children. Many children are willing to be with me. Chen Ge thought of Fan Yu, Xiao Biyu, and Meng Nan. He had a good relationship with these children. If you say so. Xiao Qing and another officer opened the door of the police car. The murderer has entered the school to kidnap the children. This is quite serious. I need all of you to come with me. At 10:10 p.m., Chen Ge carried the girl out from the police station. Wen held the shampoo bottle. She only allowed Chen Ge to carry her, and it looked like she was very attached to Chen Ge. Wen's aunt did not expect this. She followed beside Chen Ge and looked at Chen Ge and Wen with a complicated gaze. The three of them walked side by side. Those who did not know might have thought that they were a family of three. When the police were interrogating you earlier, I tried my best to cover for you. After walking to a place with no one around, Chen Ge suddenly stopped moving. Actually, it was Wen's sister who injured the teacher at the rehabilitation school. There is no such thing as a kidnapper, am I right? I don't know what you're talking about. I've seen Wen's sister. Her body is still submerged in eastern Zhujiang Dam. She died a horrible death, and she is filled with hatred. She wants to come back. Stop talking. Wen's aunt suddenly lost control of her emotions. Her voice turned shrill, and it gave the passers-by quite a fright. Running won't solve anything. Perhaps she hasn't hurt you now, but that doesn't mean you're safe. He turned to look at Wen's aunt. What happened to this child? Perhaps I can help you. Quote. Standing by the bridge, the woman looked at the river that flowed quietly in the night. After a long time, she said, "Do you know about Zhang Sheng? It's using a child's life to trade for the healthy growth of another child. I don't know the details, but I do know that when Wen was about to be born, my parents took Wen's sister away. They left at midnight and only returned when the sun was about to rise." Quote. Wen's sister didn't return with them. The woman shook her head. My parents only brought back half a bowl of water filled with impurities. They woke Wen's mother up and forced her to drink it. Water filled with impurities. Yes, it was very cloudy, and there were blood stains on the edge of the bowl. Wen's mother didn't resist. Did she just let them do whatever they wanted? Chen Ge realized that the family did not have much information about Wen's mother. Her mother used to be from the same village as us. She was once in a car accident and lost her leg. My parents took her in, but the condition was that she would give birth to a healthy child for my brother. The woman paused. It was my parents' decision to use Wen's sister as a seed. They didn't tell anyone. Wen's mother didn't even know that the bowl of water that she drank contained her child's blood. And then, Chen Ge did not have the heart to continue listening. He did not know how to comment on this family. Wen's sister didn't come back. My parents used the excuse that the child had been sent back to their hometown and hired someone to take care of him. A few days later, Wen was born. My family went to the hospital to see the child, and the child was a boy. So, until the moment before the child was born, everyone was happy. The woman smiled sadly. But soon, karma came. The child was born. Not only was it a girl, her head was slightly deformed like there was a face growing on the back of her head. After the doctor's examination, he realized that the child had a genetic disease. My parents couldn't take it anymore, so they left home one rainy night. Quote. They didn't tell Wen's mother about the first child. My father's brain was not normal, and he had a bad temper. My mother's body was slightly handicapped. They had had enough of the ridicule and mockery. Their lives were tiring and difficult, so they didn't want something like that to happen to the next generation. However, the result proved that they had been tricked, and everything that they said was useless. I don't know where they went after they left that night. In any case, I haven't seen them since that day. Initially, the woman appeared to be in pain, but as she spoke, she calmed down like she had become numb. My parents and Wen's sister disappeared. My husband is an idiot, and the second child is also an idiot. Wen's mother couldn't take the pressure and left with all the money in the family. That day was my 20th birthday. Chen Ge wanted to console the woman, but he did not know what to say. Now, I'm almost 30. I don't need other people's sympathy and help. I just hope that Wen can grow up healthy. That's all. The woman walked to Chen Ge and reached out to hug Wen. Give her to me. I'm going to take her home. I can give you the child, but you have to think about this. If this kind of thing is not completely solved, it will happen again in the future, and it might not be me who carries the child next time. Chen Ge put Wen down. The child was still holding the shampoo bottle. She seemed to have gotten used to staying with her big sister. Once she was away from her big sister, she would feel very unsafe. There's no need for you to worry. I will take good care of Wen. The woman looked at Wen. The girl had calmed down. She did not harm the woman anymore, but she did not leave with the woman either. Go home with your aunt. I will help her fulfill her wish. Chen Ge pointed at the shampoo bottle. Trust me. After a long time, Wen finally let go of the shampoo bottle and silently held her aunt's hand. Seeing that Wen had returned to normal, the woman sighed in relief. You should go home now. Leave the rest to me. Chen Ge shoved the shampoo bottle inside his backpack and looked at the dark surface of the river. Sensing the change in his tone, the woman pulled Wen behind her. What are you doing? We didn't ask for your help, so don't be stupid enough to investigate this. Quote. Through the woman's words, Chen Ge believed that Wen's aunt knew something, but due to various reasons, she did not say it. You are all victims. Those who turn tragedy into tragedy are the real culprits. If they are not stopped, more families will suffer the same pain as you. Despair is contagious, and it will only get harder and harder to stop. Chen Ge's hands gripped the railing of the bridge. He had no idea whether he was trying to get some useful information to help him complete the trial mission or to use his insignificant power to change this imperfect world. Then you be careful. I still need to go to work tomorrow, so I won't keep you company. The woman held Wen's hand and walked away. After taking a few steps, she suddenly stopped. She stood where she was for a few seconds before turning around to tell Chen Ge, seed requires 3 things, the seed, the fetus, and the mother's body. Planting a child's life into another child's body, this is seed. If many people's lives are planted into one person's body at the same time, using the whole city as the mother, when the seed germinates, what kind of monster will grow? Chen Ge was thinking about something when the woman suddenly said that. He almost thought that he had heard wrong. After my parents left that night, I secretly followed them to Liwan City and saw some things. The woman seemed to be talking to herself. Then, she held Wen's hand and left. Chen Ge stood by the bridge, watching the woman's back as she walked away. Using the whole city as the matrix. Chen Ge gripped the railing. He realized that things were more serious than he thought. Countless children's lives and despairing humans is the seed, the city is the matrix, and the fetus might be the ghost fetus. Liwan City's difficulty is 3.5 stars, and the ghost fetus difficulty is 4 stars. What is the relationship between the two? Chen Ge's mind was filled with many questions. Wen's family might just be the most basic experiment to prove that seed will produce a certain effect. Liwan City is the real testing ground for the culprit, and Xiao Bu is probably the fetus chosen by the culprit, but why does it insist on creating the ghost fetus? Could it be that it's trying to be reborn like the well-ghosted Coffin Village? Quote. The door in Liwan City had already gone out of control. How strong Xiao Bu was, Chen Ge had no idea. Perhaps she was a very unique red specter, and that was why she was chosen by the culprit. The limit of a 3-star scenario is a top red specter, but that's hard to say. Thinking back to the woman's last sentence, Chen Ge thought about it and realized some details that he had forgotten. If the culprit plans to use the whole city as the matrix and all the living humans as the seed, then he definitely needs a medium to interact with everyone. The first time I saw the shadow was at Eastern Zhujiang's freshwater plant, and everything happened at Eastern Zhujiang Dam, which is not far from the plant. The water plant purifies the water from Eastern Zhujiang Dam, and both of these stations are on the route of Bus 104. Is the culprit after drinking water? The man from the fishing association said that he saw many water ghosts at the dam. Under normal circumstances, that shouldn't happen. Could Eastern Zhujiang Dam be part of the culprit's plan? Quote. The situation was much worse than he thought. Chen Ge hailed a taxi and rushed to eastern Zhujiang Dam. The dark water rippled occasionally. When Chen Ge arrived at eastern Zhujiang Dam, it was already 11 p.m. Is anyone there? He knocked lightly on the manager's door, and 10 seconds later, the lights came on. Who is it? There was caution in the voice. The person got off the bed but did not open the door immediately. Brother Zhang, we've met before. Wasn't there someone fishing for the king that day? In the end, it was me who delivered the fishing rod. Quote. I do remember you. Why are you here at the dam so late at night? Probably because he thought Chen Ge's voice was familiar, the man's tone softened. I wish to borrow our boat. Before Chen Ge finished, the door was pushed open. The manager, Zhang Dabo, was wearing a jacket, and he looked surprised. Borrow a boat? Yes, I wish to confirm something. I need to go to the dam to fish something out. Chen Ge's eyes were determined, and his tone brooked no argument. I don't care what you want to confirm, but I can't allow you to ignore your life like that. There's a kingfish in the dam, and you're going to fish it out in the middle of the night. What if there's an accident? Zhang Dabo shook his head. Brother Zhang, when I went to deliver the fishing rod that day, I found a dead body buried in the man's house. The police might come looking for you soon. They came this morning. Zhang Dabo looked at Chen Ge with a bitter smile. That gave me quite a scare. I didn't expect to be alone with a murderer for so long. Actually, I've been in contact with the police. You can search for the owner of Western Zhujiang's haunted house online. I've worked with the police to solve many big and heavy cases. This time, I'm borrowing your boat to investigate something. Chen Ge took out his phone and opened his contact list. In the pitifully small contact list, more than half of them had names like police, officer, and captain. After much persuasion, Zhang Dabo finally agreed. I can lend you the boat, but I won't be coming with you. Okay. By the way, what are you planning to fish for? Zhang Dabo was curious. A dead body, a little girl's body. This answer was obviously different from what Zhang Dabo expected. He rubbed his hands and did not know what to say. Opening the warehouse door, Zhang Dabo took out the paddle, the fish spear, and the rope. Wait a minute. He turned to enter the management room and took out a flashlight. Don't worry, the light from this thing can travel very far at night. If you're in danger, just wave it at the shore, and I will help you call the police. Thank you. Chen Ge placed the things at the front of the boat. Then he pressed the button on the recorder and jumped onto the boat. Normally, it takes several teams to fish for a dead body. Are you sure you can do this alone? Zhang Dabo thought that Chen Ge's method was quite unreliable. Don't worry, I'm not doing this alone. After sitting on the boat, Chen Ge took out the comic and dropped the vat ghost into the water. Remember this, no matter what happens on the water, as long as the boat doesn't capsize, there's still hope. Zhang Dabo was a nice person. Seeing that Chen Ge was ready, he went into the manager's room to take out a life jacket. There's only one in the whole dam, and it was given to me by my superior. I haven't used it before, so you should make do with it. Thank you, but you should return to the house. It's not safe by the shore. Chen Ge put on the life jacket, waved at Zhang Dabo, and rowed away. Rowing a boat alone at the dam in the middle of the night was a strange experience. The sky and water were dark, and there was no light. It felt like his body was slowly melting into the darkness. Chen Ge did not rush to the center of the dam. After he rowed away from the shore, he started to communicate with the vat ghost. This ghost from Coffin Village did not retain its memory, and most of the time, it only acted on instinct. It was very difficult to communicate with him. From an outsider's perspective, Chen Ge's action was very strange. He kept waving his hands at the water like he was communicating with the water. The girl's body is about this long. When you see it, tell me the location, and then I'll give you the rope. You just need to tie it around her body. Chen Ge repeated this many times, but the vat ghost still could not understand such a complicated order. He shrunk under the water, and his round head blew bubbles as he looked at Chen Ge. Never mind, I'm asking too much of you. Chen Ge did not blame the vat ghost. He took out his phone and found a picture of a child. Go underwater to see if there are any children like this. Don't make too much noise. If you run into danger that you can't handle, retreat immediately. Your safety is the first priority. Chen Ge often asked his employees to do many things, but he had his own principles. He would not sacrifice ghosts to achieve his goal. Perhaps it was because of this that the specters who were forced to stay at the haunted house for various reasons would eventually grow and become good employees. After simplifying the order, the vat ghost seemed to understand. His body sank, and he slowly disappeared from Chen Ge's sight. It's not even midnight yet. I hope everything goes well. Chen Ge looked at the shampoo bottle in his backpack. Actually, he had a more efficient solution, and that was to release Wen Wen's sister and have her search for the body. If the vat ghost fails, then I'll consider Wen Wen's sister. After waiting for more than 10 minutes, the vat ghost finally returned. His expression was one of terror, like he was scared out of his wits. Hiding under the water, the vat ghost waved his hands that were disproportionate to the size of his head. He mumbled something incomprehensible. Chen Ge could only see countless bubbles appearing on the surface of the water. Speak slowly, don't summon anything else later. Chen Ge flipped through the comic and called out Lao Zhou. Can you understand what he is saying? He felt like it would be easier for ghosts to communicate with each other. Lao Zhou stared at the vat ghost's lips for a long time before replying, there are many people underwater, and he is very afraid. Why don't you ask him if he found the girl's body? Chen Ge sighed in relief. He suddenly realized that Lao Zhou had the talent to be a translator. This was a rare talent. The communication between Lao Zhou and the vat ghost was soundless. Chen Ge used the black phone's ghost ear to catch some of the blurry words. He didn't see the girl's body, but he did find many bodies at the bottom of the water. The girl's body might be hidden among them. After conversing with the vat ghost, Lao Zhou came to this conclusion. There are many bodies underwater, so you should be looking for the one you're looking for, but it'll take time. One night should be enough. It's fine to take it slow. Chen Ge had the vat ghost lead the way. He was about to row the boat further away when a beam of light shone on him. Turning around in confusion, Chen Ge saw Zhang Dabo waving the flashlight on the shore. What's wrong? I think I saw someone else on your boat. Zhang Dabo's palm that held the flashlight was covered in cold sweat. There's still time for you to turn around. You probably saw wrong. Chen Ge signaled for Lao Zhou to return to the comic, but he did not get any response. When he turned to look at the front of the boat, he realized that Lao Zhou's reaction was even faster than his. When the flashlight shone on him, the boy had already disappeared. You should switch off the flashlight. You might attract the kingfish. Chen Ge felt like he was the main character in those horror movies. He refused to listen to advice and stubbornly persisted until he met with a ghost in the end. Shaking his head, Chen Ge chased this strange thought out of his mind and rowed toward the center of the dam. Eastern Zhujiang Dam was not big, but it was not small either. After rowing to the center of the dam, Chen Ge felt like he had become part of the dam, and his body was assimilated by the darkness. There was no light, and they were very far from the shore. Chen Ge was not worried that Lao Zhou would be seen, so he released him again. Tell the vat ghost to hold the end of the rope. If he finds the girl's body, tie her to the rope, and I will personally fish her out. Lao Zhou relayed Chen Ge's message and dropped the rope into the water. The vat ghost grabbed the rope and dove back into the water. The surface of the water returned to normal. Chen Ge and Lao Zhou held the end of the rope like they were fishing. They maintained the same posture and waited silently. Time ticked by until midnight, and the vat ghost still did not return. Could something have happened to her? Even though Chen Ge was very strict with the vat ghost, he was still his employee, and in Chen Ge's heart, he was one of his own. The night was thick, and after midnight, a light fog rose from the surface of the water, completely isolating the dam from its surroundings. Why is there fog at this time? The shampoo bottle in his backpack was shaking, and strands of black hair poked out from the bottle like it was trying to warn Chen Ge. The recorder started to make a static sound, and Chen Ge smelled a light scent of blood. He did not call for help, but Shu Yin voluntarily appeared at the back of the boat. Something is wrong. This 2-star trial mission seems to have changed. Based on the difficulty of a normal 2-star mission, a half-red specter would not be a threat to Shu Yin, but strangely enough, Shu Yin just had to appear at that moment. The fog thickened. Chen Ge could see the flickering lights on the shore, but in just a few minutes, he could not even see the light anymore. Chen Ge was now at the center of the dam. With the flow of the water, the boat spun on the spot. Gradually, he lost his sense of direction, and he felt like he had been isolated from the outside world. Pay attention to the surface of the water. Chen Ge summoned Bai Cholan and had him and Lao Zhou guard the front of the boat, Shiyan guard the back, and he sat in the middle of the boat. The fog was still thickening, and to Chen Ge's surprise, there seemed to be a voice coming out from the fog. It was unclear whether it came from the surface or the bottom of the water, but the person was calling his name, and the voice was very familiar. The fog isolated Chen Ge from the shore. The boat slowly turned and slowly lost its direction. Chen Ge. The familiar voice appeared in his ears again. Chen Ge frowned. He tried to think, but there was no memory of this voice in his mind. It was very familiar and familiar, like this voice had been with him for a long time. Could it be my parents? That can't be right. How could I not recognize my own parents' voices? Quote. In the fog, Chen Ge was dazed, and he bit on the tip of his tongue. This doesn't look like something a 2-star trial mission would have. I've probably run into an ambush. Chen Ge soon calmed down. He knew that he had ruined the plan of the culprit in eastern Zhejiang so many times, so the culprit must have hated him to the core. The shampoo bottle in his backpack vibrated even more. Strands of black hair crawled out from the gap of the bottle to wrap around the bottle. It looked very strange and creepy. Is there anything you want to tell me? From Chen Ge's perspective, Wenwen's sister was the victim, so she would not help the culprit deal with him. The black hair spread and tangled together like a road sign, pointing a direction for Chen Ge. She's giving you directions. The body is over there, Lao Zhou said. The situation has changed. There's no hurry to go there. Before getting to the bottom of the voice in the fog, Chen Ge would not move. The fog was still thickening. Chen Ge took out his phone to look at it. There was no signal, so he could not contact the people on the shore. He could not call for help, so he could only rely on himself. Lao Zhou, can you hear someone calling my name in the fog? Chen Ge sat in the middle of the boat, listening to the voice in the fog, and an indescribable sense of loneliness slowly formed in him. It was like someone was telling him the reality that he had always been alone, and he would always be alone. No. Lao Zhou shook his head. His tone was the same as usual, and his demeanor and actions hadn't changed much. However, all of this was different in Chen Ge's eyes. He looked at Lao Zhou's face and felt a trace of gloom and coldness. It was as if Lao Zhou was plotting something bad and wanted to kill him. Chen Ge, the cries sounded like the people closest to him, reminding him to stay away from the ghosts. For normal people, staying away from ghosts is the right thing to do, but my family's situation is more unique. Be it my parents or myself, our attitude toward ghosts is different from normal people, especially with my current situation. Without relying on the power of ghosts, there is no way I can survive. Chen Ge knew this very well. I treat ghosts as my friends, so why would I think that my friends are in danger? Besides, compared to humans, ghosts are sometimes more amiable. Quote. Looking at the water, Chen Ge's eyes were filled with determination. I don't know who you are, but I'm still too impatient. If you want to sow discord between me and ghosts, you've made a mistake. Even though his mind was wavering, Chen Ge's attitude toward ghosts did not change. This was a concept that he had established since he was young. With the help of his parents and the black phone, his understanding of ghosts was completely different from normal people. Your voice is familiar and kind, but the things that you want me to do will only bring me harm and no benefit. The real person who wants to kill me is you. Stop playing these little tricks. Come out and let me see your real face. The fog sealed off the dam. The boat slowly turned, and with the waves, the memory in Chen Ge's mind started to blur. Chen Ge. This kind of voice gave Chen Ge a sense of familiarity, and that was the scariest part. He did not know this person at all, and this voice did not exist in his memory at all. The sense of familiarity had nothing to do with his memory, it was like it was branded into his body. He had experienced something similar before. During the nightmare mission, after he took 44 steps, there was also a voice calling his name from deep inside the tunnel. The same tone, the same timbre. Chen Ge gripped his fists, and he was reminded of something. During the tunnel mission, when he heard that voice, he saw something unbelievable. He had been killed when he was very young. That strange experience of witnessing his own death was something that he could never forget. His thoughts slowly sank into his mind, and he could not stop himself from recalling what had happened back then. When I was very young, I once entered the deepest part of the tunnel. The person who killed me was standing behind me, and from the looks of it, they were very familiar with me. The memory floated, and his body swayed along with the boat. When Chen Ge escaped from that memory, he realized that other than himself, there was nothing else on the boat. His backpack, Lao Zhou, Xu Yin, and Wen Wen's sister had all disappeared. He was the only person on the boat. The fog covered everything. Chen Ge felt like he had been abandoned by the world, and an indescribable sense of loneliness surged from the bottom of his heart. The temperature kept dropping, and his exposed skin was covered in a layer of water. It was cold to the touch, very different from a living person. What's going on? Is this the special power of an unknown ghost? He sat on the boat, holding the oars. Even at a time like this, Chen Ge did not give up. He was ready to fight. Chen Ge. The voice came again, and this time, Chen Ge could hear it clearly. He realized that the voice was getting closer and closer to him. This is a very strange feeling. I've heard this voice before in the tunnel. When I first obtained the black phone and did my first nightmare mission, this voice came from the mirror as well. When Dr. Gao destroyed the whole scenario at the underground morgue and connected it to the Red City outside, I also felt a sense of familiarity. Even the door at the haunted house's toilet sometimes gives me a sense of familiarity, like something is calling me from behind the door. His mind was filled with many different information, and Chen Ge felt like his head was pounding. Have I forgotten something? Is this related to my parents' disappearance? Quote. Chen Ge. The voice came again, and it was several meters away from Chen Ge. Taking a deep breath, he placed the oars into the water and started to row the boat. He decided to go take a look. After rowing for 3 meters, Chen Ge saw a blurry shadow in the fog. The shadow was not tall, so it should be a child. Wen Wen's sister's body. He was still thinking about the mission given by the black phone. This had become part of his instinct. The boat continued to move forward. After closing the distance, the fog parted, and the shape of the shadow became clearer. It was not Wen Wen's sister's body but a boy's. When he saw the boy's face, Chen Ge's grip on the oars tightened, and he felt a chill crawl up his spine. The boy was his younger self. He had the familiar face and the familiar voice, but the difference was that the boy's neck was broken, and his head was practically hanging off his shoulders. His face was twisted, and he carried a venom and resentment that Chen Ge had not seen before. Yes, this is my own voice. Chen Ge had always felt that the voice was familiar and familiar. It was not until he saw the boy in the fog that he realized that the voice that had been calling him was his own voice. Why would I call my own name? Who is this person? Why does he look exactly like me when I was younger? Quote. Chen Ge's head felt like it was going to explode. He pressed hard on his temples. Have I forgotten something? Actually, when the door at the haunted house's toilet appeared, Chen Ge had started to suspect it. Only those who had lost all hope would push open the door, and there was a door at the haunted house. Who pushed open the door? Was it his parents or himself? Just as Chen Ge was sinking into self-doubt, the boy in the fog raised his head to look at Chen Ge. The boy's eyes were hard to describe. There was resentment, jealousy, and a very complicated emotion. This was a child that was not Changgu's only child. He could not communicate with anyone. His body was cold, ugly, and his heart was twisted, filled with the desire to destroy. Chen Ge, save me. The familiar voice came from the boy's lips. His eyes stared at Chen Ge. Then his feet left the water, and the shadow of another person appeared behind him. From the size, it should be an adult. He grabbed the young Chen Ge by his shoulders, raised the boy high into the air, and tossed him into the dam. When the adult's shadow left, Chen Ge could still hear his voice. This time, he is definitely dead, and he will not return. The water rippled, and the adult's shadow disappeared. Chen Ge looked at this scene dumbly. When he was doing the tunnel nightmare mission, Chen Ge had also seen his younger self being killed by an adult. Now, when he was doing the water ghost mission, he realized that his younger self was once again killed by the same adult. What is going on? He rowed the boat to the spot where the boy's body was dumped. He looked down into the water, and his pupils narrowed. The scene before him was rather cruel. The child's limbs were twisted, and his head was dangling from his shoulders. The face that looked similar to Chen Ge looked at Chen Ge through the water. His expression became more and more twisted, and all the pain turned into hatred. As if unwilling to sink into the dark water, his mouth slowly opened, and his twisted arms waved upward. The small body started to float up, and the scary yet familiar face grew larger in Chen Ge's sight. Chen Ge. His mind was blank, and a strange thought appeared in Chen Ge's mind: it had returned. Unable to control his body, or rather, that special calling affected Chen Ge's thinking. The child underwater opened his arms. No one knew what he had been through before he died. His arms were longer than normal, and the joints seemed to have been pulled apart. The pale, twisted arms floated toward the water, and the face moved closer and closer to Chen Ge. The purplish lips opened slightly, and he called Chen Ge's name underwater. The surface of the water was like a mirror. On one side was the adult Chen Ge, and on the other side was Chen Ge, who was murdered when he was young, filled with hatred. Separated by the water, the two completely different lives appeared to be merging at this moment. Chen Ge, I am you. He could not hear any special emotion from the voice. His body moved toward the water involuntarily, and it was like he was looking at himself in the mirror. The twisted arms reached out from the water, and the pale fingers reached for Chen Ge's face. The child's movement was very light, and Chen Ge could not tell whether he wanted to drag him underwater or just wanted to touch him. Who are you? Why do you keep calling my name? Quote. Chen Ge could sense a trace of familiarity from the child. This was a connection that went beyond blood, like the two of them were originally the same person. Who killed you? Who turned you into this? Quote. Chen Ge kept asking the questions in his heart, but the child underwater did not answer. His fingertips moved closer and closer to Chen Ge's face. Just as they were about to touch Chen Ge, another hand landed on Chen Ge's shoulder. The 5 fingers were long, and the blood vessels and cracks were like seductive tattoos. The first impression that this hand gave was that it was very beautiful. The fog around the boat suddenly disappeared, and an extremely cold presence appeared behind Chen Ge. The black hair that was soaked in blood slid past Chen Ge's body, and they stabbed into the dark water like needles. The attack was indiscriminate, and it reached deep into the water like it was going to turn the whole dam upside down. Chen Ge felt the hand on his shoulder tighten, and his body that was leaning toward the water was slowly pulled back. A shrill scream came from the water. The child who looked like Chen Ge morphed into a shadow and escaped. After it disappeared, Chen Ge also woke up. He felt like he had just been pulled out from the water. His body was soaked in cold sweat, and he gasped for fresh air. When he opened his eyes again, the fog above the dam had dissipated. Chen Ge saw Bai Cholan and Lao Zhou huddled behind Xu Yin, shivering. Xu Yin, who was usually silent, had an unnatural expression on his face. Was it Zhangya who appeared earlier? He touched his shoulder. In his memory, there was a hand on his shoulder, and the pale skin was crisscrossed with blood vessels and cracks. Has her wound not recovered yet? The other 3 specters on the boat did not dare answer. It was as if the woman in Chen Ge's shadow was a taboo that they could not bring up. Standing up, Chen Ge turned to look in the direction that the child had escaped. He used his yin-yang vision and saw someone by the riverbank. The person was pushing an electric scooter. The person was very cautious. When he sensed Chen Ge's gaze, he immediately left on the scooter. An electric scooter. Chen Ge looked at the person's back, and the image of another person appeared in his mind. He looks like Huang Ling's husband. Xiao Jiyu had accidentally taken the bus on Route 104 to save Huang Ling, but then Chen Ge realized that the woman's husband was already dead, and the person sharing her bed was someone else. Why would Huang Ling's husband be here? He is the culprit in eastern Zhejiang. That's impossible. Chen Ge looked at the scooter and was reminded of something else. When he and Captain Yan went to Mingyang residence to look for the broken limbs, some of them had been taken away. At the time, he had seen an electric scooter enter Mingyang residence from upstairs. The person who stole the limbs that night was him. Initially, Chen Ge had thought that Huang Ling's husband was just a small fry, but now, it appeared like the man's identity was not that simple. He did not care about salvaging the body. He messaged Captain Yan and Li Zheng to ask about Huang Ling and her husband. While waiting for the reply, Chen Ge looked at the water alone, and his mind could not help but think back to what had happened earlier. When we fought at the freshwater plant, the shadow turned into my younger self. Is this his special power, or is he really related to me when I was younger? Chen Ge thought about it for a long time, but there was no answer. I know too little, but it's not like I've come up empty-handed tonight. He narrowed his eyes to look at the riverbank. Huang Ling's husband had already left. Before this, I thought he was just a small fry, but it turns out he's the biggest fish. Chen Ge had one good thing about him: he did not like to do things that went in circles. He decided to go to Huang Ling's home after he completed the Twin Water Ghost mission. The fog above the dam slowly dissipated, and the surroundings were dark. Chen Ge glanced at the time. It was almost 1 a.m. I've been in the fog for so long. When the boat reached the center of the dam, it was not even midnight, and now it was almost an hour later. Lao Zhou, has the vat ghost returned? Chen Ge stood at the front of the boat and looked down the rope. The dam was deeper than he had expected. Even with yin-yang vision, he could not see the bottom. Lao Zhou was not in a good state. He had been scared by Zhang Ya, so he could not speak as naturally to Chen Ge. Before this, he had always thought that his boss was a kind person. He had gathered the ghosts at the haunted house through virtue, but after seeing Zhang Ya walk out from Chen Ge's shadow at such a close distance, his opinion had changed. To be able to spend so much time with such a scary red specter, to the point where they were inseparable, was that something a normal person could do? He even started to suspect that his boss had been controlled by a red specter and was nothing more than a puppet. What's wrong? Are you not feeling well? Quote. Chen Ge's concerned tone caused Lao Zhou to shiver. He finally recovered and quickly waved his hands. I'm fine, I'm fine. What did you ask earlier? When I was spacing out, did the vat ghost return? No, the rope didn't even move. Lao Zhou shook his head. Actually, I didn't notice it. I was too busy looking at you. Looking at me. By the way, did you see a boy who looks like me walking over from afar? Quote. Little boy. Lao Zhou's puzzled expression explained a lot. Only Chen Ge and Zhang Ya had seen what happened before. Did you notice anyone on the other side of the river? Jen wanted to know more about Huang Ling's husband. I don't know, but the fog seems to be drifting from there. Lao Zhou's words confirmed Chen Ge's speculation. Is there a problem with the fog? Lao Zhou was very smart. He immediately figured out the crux of the problem. I don't know what their goal is for now. They don't just want to kill me. It seems like they want me to see something and led me down the wrong path. Any other person would be traumatized when they saw their younger self being killed. Thankfully, under the training of the Black Phone, Chen Ge had a strong heart and strong nerves. Let's not talk about that anymore. The vat ghost hasn't returned, so he's probably in danger. Help me communicate with the female ghost inside the shampoo bottle. See if she can help bring the vat ghost up. The vat ghost dove into the water alone. Facing so many unfamiliar water ghosts, Chen Ge was worried about his safety. Lao Zhou relayed Chen Ge's words to Wenwen's sister. After a while, the shampoo bottle was opened, and strands of dirty, smelly black hair crawled out. She seemed to want to climb onto Chen Ge's body, but she was afraid. What is this? Chen Ge turned to Lao Zhou, and Lao Zhou was confused. The black hair was stuck together, and if one did not look closely, they would look like seaweed. It's the same hair, but this is the complete opposite of Zhang Ya's. Chen Ge squatted down. He made a very brave decision and reached out to grab the black hair on the boat. How do you want me to help you? His fingers gripped one end of the hair. It was wet and slippery like he was holding a live fish. The black hair curled around Chen Ge's finger. She was very careful and only dared to touch Chen Ge's finger. She did not even dare to touch his palm. One end of the hair curled around Chen Ge's finger, and the other end reached toward the water. You want to drag me down with you? Chen Ge did not think the other party was that brave. Zhang Ya had just appeared, and Shu Yin was standing next to her. In this situation, Wenwen's sister would not show any intention of harming him. Are you giving me directions? While they were in a stalemate, the rope at the front of the boat moved. Many bubbles popped up, and the vat ghost's round head surfaced. Why did you stay down there for so long? Perhaps sensing the concern in Chen Ge's tone, the vat ghost opened and closed his mouth. He was no longer that afraid. He excitedly waved his hands at Chen Ge, and another series of bubbles appeared on the surface of the water. He found the body, but he can't go over. All the ghosts underwater can't get close. Lao Zhou played the role of translator seriously. Ghosts can't get close. Chen Ge felt the wetness on his fingertips. Because ghosts can't get close, that's why Wenwen's sister asked me to help her fish up the body. Looking at the surface of the water, this mission was completely different from what he had expected. Wenwen's sister was a half-red specter, and if she could not get close, then other ghosts would not be able to do anything. Zhangya might be able to ignore the obstacles, but unfortunately, Chen Ge could not command her. The connection between Shuyin and me will weaken when he's underwater. He hasn't found his heart, so it's pointless for him to go down there. Shuyin trusted Chen Ge a lot, and because of that, Chen Ge did not want Shuyin to do something that he was not confident in. Since ghosts can't get close, I'll have to go down there myself. Chen Ge took out the black phone to confirm the mission details. It clearly stated that he had to go alone to fish up the body. I was wondering why there was such a restriction. So, it's because they're waiting for me. Chen Ge thought about it and finally made up his mind. There's nothing to hesitate about. When I first obtained the black phone, I was in a much worse situation than I am now. I wasn't afraid then, so I won't be afraid now. After securing the rope to the boat, Chen Ge had Lao Zhou and Bai Cholan guard the rope while he grabbed the flashlight that Zhang Dabo had given him. He removed his shirt and pants and jumped into the dam. The water was low, but Chen Ge did not feel cold. It was unclear whether it was because he was physically fit or because he had gotten used to the cold. His fingertips were entwined by Wenwen's sister's black hair, and the woman was gently pulling Chen Ge toward a certain part of the dam. He took a deep breath and had the vat ghost and Shuyin guard him. He used his arms and legs to push his body downward. He turned on the flashlight, and the light twisted in the dark water. Even with yin-yang vision, Chen Ge's vision was limited. His fingers were dragged by the black hair, and time slowed down. Chen Ge seemed to have entered a different world. It was very quiet, and it gave him a strange feeling. It was like he was a fetus that had not been born yet and was still inside his mother's womb. With his body lowered, Chen Ge held the flashlight in one hand and the rope in the other. Pressure came from all directions, and the air in his lungs slowly decreased. Something seemed to touch Chen Ge's body in the dark, but it was unclear whether it was a fish or something else. He could not speak, and he could not communicate with the ghosts around him. Chen Ge could not even see them. He could only sense Shuyin and the vat ghost beside him, and that was the reason he dared to dive into the water to fish up the body. Several seconds later, with the guidance of the black hair, Chen Ge saw something that looked like a coffin at the bottom of the dam. It was surrounded by dense water plants. In the dark water, he could only see his surroundings with the help of the flashlight. Dragged by the black hair, Chen Ge got closer and closer to the coffin-like thing. Why would there be something like this in the dam? Was it set up by someone? Before jumping into the dam, Chen Ge did not expect the water to be so deep. The oxygen in his lungs was decreasing, and his body was starting to feel unwell. Moving the flashlight, the light shone around the coffin. Black, water plants fluttered at the bottom of the dam. After diving for another 2 meters, Chen Ge finally saw that it was not water plants but human hair. The strands of hair were connected together, and it made Chen Ge's eyelids twitch. Wenwen's sister wants to bring me through the black hair. Just that thought appeared in his mind, and his body shivered uncontrollably. The black hair curled around Chen Ge's arm. After the water plants at the bottom of the dam were pushed away, a pale and swollen face was revealed. It's a woman. Her eyes were closed, and she floated vertically at the bottom of the dam. Something seemed to be tied to her legs, and they were connected to the coffin. With a cursory glance, Chen Ge noticed there was a hole at the bottom of the dam. The coffin was stuck inside the hole, and the dead bodies floated above the hole. Their hair and the water plants grew together to form a large shadow. To get into the hole, one had to walk through the water plants and dead people's hair. This was the first time that Chen Ge had seen such a strange scene. Perhaps it was due to the exhaustion of oxygen, the feeling of suffocation was getting stronger. Using his hand to push away the water plants and hair, Chen Ge walked past the dead bodies. The hole at the bottom of the dam was very deep, and the coffin was stuck very close to the hole. When Chen Ge entered the hole, the black hair on his fingers loosened. Wenwen's sister was unable to get close to the coffin. Unable to speak, Chen Ge could only gesture with his hands. Fortunately, Shuyin and Chen Ge had worked together many times, so they quickly understood what he meant. There was a smear of red under the dark water, as if blood had been poured into the water. Shuyin tried to follow Chen Ge into the cave, but as soon as he got close, there was a strange sound coming from the bottom of the cave, as if some monster was hiding in the cave and slowly waking up. Shuyin told Chen Ge to retreat. He sensed that something ominous was hiding in the cave. Is Sister Wenwen's body deep inside the cave or inside the coffin? With water in his ears and difficulty breathing, Chen Ge's situation was very bad. He had to make a decision as soon as possible. Open the coffin. If Wenwen's sister's body isn't in the coffin, retreat immediately. Quote. None of the ghosts were willing to get close to the cave, so there had to be something wrong with it. No matter what the reason was, it was not good news for Chen Ge, who did not have any ghosts with him. He often interacted with ghosts, and normally, the only thing that could make a ghost afraid was a ghost that was crueler and scarier. Chen Ge's diving skill was very poor. He had no choice but to grab the water plants and the dead people's hair to pull himself closer to the coffin. The flashlight that Zhang Dabo gave Chen Ge was not the kind used for diving. The light flickered like it could go out at any moment. The light was about to disappear, and the feeling of suffocation kept coming. The longer he stayed underwater, the higher the chance of an accident happening to Chen Ge. Grabbing the water plants and the dead bodies, Chen Ge finally entered the cave. At the same time, he saw that the dead bodies' legs were tied up with ropes, and the other end of the ropes was inside the coffin. The ends of the ropes were all inside the coffin. It looked like the thing inside the coffin was their owner, and it had the power to decide their life and death. After another 2 seconds, Chen Ge finally grabbed the coffin inside the cave. He adjusted his position so that the light from the flashlight could reach deeper into the cave. The man from the Fishing Association saw many water ghosts at Eastern Zhujiang Dam, but there are only 4 bodies around this cave. Could the other water ghosts be hiding inside the cave? The light from the flashlight could not reach deep into the cave, so he could not see what was inside it. If there are dead bodies, I'll have to inform the police. I'll leave this cave for Captain Yan to explore. Chen Ge wanted to suggest to Captain Yan that they drain the dam, but the possibility of that happening was not high. Eastern Zhujiang Dam was upstream, and it was connected to several branches of the river. Unless the upstream water was cut off, the water in the dam would not be drained. Time to think about it. Due to the lack of oxygen, Chen Ge's mind was starting to blur. He pressed his palm on the coffin lid, and there was a slippery and sticky feeling in his palm. It was very uncomfortable, like he had stuck his hand into glue. What is covering the surface of the coffin? Chen Ge raised his hand to look. His palm had turned red. It was unclear whether it was some kind of red algae or something else, but Chen Ge could see clearly that the red thing in his palm was moving on its own like it had a life of its own. Who cares? Chen Ge walked to the end of the coffin. Perhaps because his experience at Coffin Village was too unforgettable, he was very familiar with the structure of the coffin. Using the buoyancy of the water and his own weight, Chen Ge shook the coffin lid, and several seconds later, the lid finally opened a gap. The lid was nailed to the coffin, and it was a custom at Zhujiang's old city. It was called sealing the coffin. Sealing the coffin was very rare because only those who had shamed their ancestors would be sealed and buried by their descendants. With all his might, Chen Ge could not fully open the coffin lid. As he panicked, a thick smell of blood rushed into his nostrils. Shuyin entered the cave and grabbed the other end of the coffin lid. He purposely avoided the end of the coffin like there was something there that made him uncomfortable or even afraid. With Shuyin's help, Chen Ge slowly opened the coffin. He reached the flashlight into the coffin, and the scene inside was something that he did not expect. Inside the coffin were many dolls. They were not the kind that could be found on the market, they were probably privately made. The craftsmanship was rough, and there were no labels on them, but there were names written on them. What's going on? Chen Ge's attention was fully focused on the coffin. The black phone mentioned retrieving the dead bodies, so it's retrieving these dolls. They're the dead bodies. Time was running out, so Chen Ge did not have time to think. He reached his hand into the coffin. However, when he touched the dolls inside the coffin, the coffin shook, and the ropes that reached into the coffin were pulled taut. He lifted his head to look up, and the 4 dead bodies hanging at the 4 corners of the coffin were all staring at him. The black hair of the 4 dead faces weaved together like a large net. Chen Ge maintained his composure. At this point, there was no turning back. He pulled out the dolls from the coffin. Strangely enough, there was a string that pierced through the dolls' hearts. He only needed to take one out to pull out all the other dolls. When he dragged the dolls inside the coffin, Chen Ge felt his legs go numb like there was a school of fish swimming past him. Thinking about his current situation, he had a bad feeling about this. Turning the flashlight, Chen Ge lowered his head to look. His legs were crowded with pale-faced children. When did they appear? With yin-yang vision, Chen Ge soon realized that these children could not even be considered ghosts. They were some lingering spirits that were about to dissipate, and they had been residing in these old dolls. Could it be that these dolls represent living people? Have so many children died because of this? Things were much more serious than he thought. Chen Ge pulled out the child who was pierced by the rope from the coffin and prepared to swim up. Wait a minute. Without much hesitation, Chen Ge forcibly removed the lid from the coffin. Xu Yin did not dare approach the back of the coffin. This normal coffin lid had to have some kind of secret, so he decided to bring it back to study. The dead bodies hanging at the 4 corners of the coffin did not stop Chen Ge. This was more like some kind of ritual. The deeper secret would only be revealed when he ventured deeper into the cave. This should be the setup of the culprit in eastern Zhejiang. Compared to entering an unknown cave, it's safer to find Huang Ling's husband and ask him personally. One good thing about Chen Ge was that he rarely did things that he was not confident in. With the protection of Xu Yin and the vat ghost, Chen Ge grabbed the coffin lid and the rope that held the dolls as he swam through the black hair and the water plants. Emerging from the water, Chen Ge took a deep breath. He tossed the dolls and the coffin lid onto the boat and then used the last bit of his strength to climb onto the boat. A slight vibration came from the boat. Chen Ge pulled back the shirt that covered him, and the screen of the black phone lit up. He had received a new message. Chen Ge had held his breath for too long, and he still had not recovered from the shock. His head was heavy, but even in that state, he still gripped the lid of the coffin and the rope that pierced through the doll's heart tightly. Taking a few deep breaths, Chen Ge finally adjusted himself, and he turned to look at the phone. Twin Water Ghost Mission Difficulty, 2 stars. Mission Completion Rate, 100%. Obtained Hidden Item, the Drowned Man's Jacket. The Drowned Man's Jacket. Malice Points, 17. There are things underwater. They slowly crawled into my clothes and dragged me deeper into the water. Mission Completion Rate, 100%. Looks like the hole at the bottom of the dam was not included in the Twin Water Ghost mission. Chen Ge pocketed the black phone, but there were still many questions in his mind. The coffin is stuck in the middle of the hole. Is it to block the hole? Earlier, Chen Ge had noticed that Xu Yin did not dare approach the back of the coffin lid, so he had a feeling that the secret of the coffin was hidden on the lid. After putting on his clothes, Chen Ge placed the coffin lid horizontally on the boat. I can't carry this thing back, and the taxi probably won't allow me to bring it with me. I need to figure something out. The coffin lid that Chen Ge had pulled out from the water was much smaller than a normal coffin lid. The surface was rotten, and there were some red spots on it. It was unclear whether they were the carcasses of insects or some kind of wilted aquatic plant. After removing the spots on the surface, Chen Ge made a shocking discovery at the back of the coffin lid. There was a demon carved on the rotten wooden board. The demon was wrapped in chains and had 6 eyes. It looked similar to the demon that the Society of Strange Tales had carved on the door of their haunted house. The Society of Strange Tales held a ritual, killed people, and gouged out their eyes. Finally, they created something like this on the door of my haunted house. At the time, they wanted to take over my haunted house's door, so this demon should have the effect of guarding the door. Chen Ge took out his phone to snap a picture of the demon. The coffin is stuck at the hole, and the demon is carved on the coffin lid. Could this be to guard the hole under the dam? To prevent the things inside from escaping? Using a coffin to guard the cave, only Chen Ge would come up with such an idea. The black phone has given me a mission to retrieve the body, which means that it should have considered the possibility that I'll be taking the coffin with me. In that case, even if there's something scary inside the cave, it won't be a threat to me. Since the coffin lid had been taken out, it was impossible for Chen Ge to return it. Chen Ge came up with an excuse for himself. The coffin was probably set up by the culprit in eastern Zhejiang, and the enemy of my enemy is my friend. It doesn't want the monster inside the cave to come out, so I have to release it. Chen Ge did not know what was in the cave, nor did he know where it led to. To be honest, he wasn't curious at all. He just wanted to get away from this place first. He didn't want something to come out and vent its anger on him. Just as Chen Ge was about to row the boat away, a dark shadow appeared on the calm surface of the water. I almost forgot about her. The shadow stuck to the edge of the boat, and strands of black hair poked out of the water. They crawled into the boat like they had a life of their own before crawling into one of the dolls. Picking up the doll, Chen Ge realized that this doll was different from the others. She was wearing a blood-stained dress, and her hair was real human hair. The name that was carved on the back was also blood red. Zhao Shuang, This doll is Wen Wen's big sister. The twin water ghost mission had been completed, but there were still many dolls on the boat. All the dolls have names carved on their backs, and each of them represents a life. When he was underwater, Chen Ge could sense the fear and anxiety of the children. They were still young, and most of them had not seen the world. There are too many things involved in this. I'm afraid I won't be able to deal with it alone. I'd better tell Captain Yan and the rest. 90% of Zhejiang's missing population happened in eastern Zhejiang. If they all died because of the Shadow's plan, then the number would be scary. Chen Ge took down the doll that Wen Wen's big sister was hiding in. There was something strange about the doll, her clothes were always wet. Chen Ge was worried that she would wet the comic, so he shoved it into his pocket. Summoning all the ghosts, Chen Ge rowed the boat back to the bank. When Zhang Dabo saw Chen Ge return safely, he sighed in relief. He had been worried sick by the bank. The man before him had not only gone to the dam to fish for dead bodies at night, he had jumped into the dam without any safety measures. Just watching from the bank, Zhang Dabo's heart was pounding. He was afraid that the kingfish would suddenly appear to attack Chen Ge. "Brother, give me a hand." The boat reached the bank, and Chen Ge pushed the coffin lid toward the bank. "What is this?" Zhang Dabo was a practical person. He grabbed the lid and pulled it toward the bank. "A coffin lid. I found it at the bottom of the dam." "A coffin." Hearing what Chen Ge said, Zhang Dabo almost fell to the ground. "Didn't you go to fish for dead bodies? Why are you dragging a coffin lid up here?" Quote, "There are 4 bodies at the bottom of the dam. I can't deal with them alone. I'd better call the police and get the professionals to do this." 4. Zhang Dabo could not believe there were so many dead bodies at the dam that he normally guarded. Chen Ge moved everything from the boat to the bank, and his phone rang at that moment. "Should I call the police now?" Zhang Dabo looked at the coffin lid, and his eyes were empty. "There's no rush. I'll take this first." It was Li Zheng who called Chen Ge. When Chen Ge saw Huang Ling's husband, he had messaged Captain Yan and Li Zheng, but probably because it was too late, they did not reply immediately. Pressing the answer button, before Chen Ge could say anything, Li Zheng's voice came from the other end. "Chen Ge, you said Huang Ling's husband is a murder suspect. How confident are you?" Quote, 100%. I suggest you capture him as soon as possible. The man is very dangerous, and the longer you wait, the worse the situation will be. Chen Ge said confidently. "Other than that, I found 4 female bodies at eastern Zhejiang's dam." Eastern Zhejiang? Yes, underwater. When I went down to investigate, Huang Ling's husband was nearby. Li Zheng did not ask why Chen Ge would go to the dam to look for bodies in the middle of the night. He gave Chen Ge the answer directly. "Wait there, our people will be there soon. Thank you." After hanging up, Chen Ge glanced at Zhang Dabo, who was spacing out. "Brother, the police will be here soon. I might need to trouble you again." "It's no trouble. If there's anything you need, just tell me." After everything that had happened, the way Zhang Dabo looked at Chen Ge had changed. At 3:10 a.m., the officers from eastern Zhejiang's station arrived at the same time. At the same time, Chen Ge received another call from Li Zheng. "Chen Ge, something's wrong. I've personally gone to Huang Ling's home to take a look. Huang Ling is delirious, and her husband is not home. Follow the surveillance at eastern Zhejiang's dam." You should be able to confirm his movement route. This person is very important and dangerous, so you have to be careful when you search for him. Cooperate with Team 2 to investigate the bodies in the dam. Leave the rest to us. Whenever Li Jung spoke to Chen Ge, he had this strange feeling. Be it the tone or the way he thought, the man was like a frontline detective with many years of combat experience. Sometimes, he even wondered if Chen Ge was a special member that Captain Yan had purposely found. Li Jung felt like one day in the future, if Chen Ge patted him on the shoulder and said with a smile, "Sorry, I'm also a police officer," he would not be that surprised. He loved his profession, but Chen Ge's pursuit of justice and the investigation of murder had far exceeded the scope of his passion. It was hard to imagine what kind of state he was in every day, searching for buried cases in the forgotten corners of the city without asking for anything in return. Okay, I will cooperate with them. The investigation team responsible for the bodies in the dam was Eastern Zhejiang's police station and Team 2. Chen Ge was not that familiar with them. After asking some basic questions, they came to a stalemate over the ownership of the coffin lid. In the end, with the persuasion of Team 2's leader, Chen Ge agreed to give the coffin lid and the dolls inside the coffin to the police. After the forensics team and other professionals finished their work, the police would transport them back to the haunted house. Every doll here has a name carved on their back, and each name corresponds to a living child. I suggest you investigate all these names, you might find something unexpected. Eastern Zhejiang had been peaceful for a long time, but the peace was fake. There was an undercurrent under the surface, and no one knew how much more dirty water was hidden under the surface. At 3:30 a.m., the dam's manager and the rescue team arrived, and they fished out all the bodies and coffins. During the process, one of the rescue team members heard strange noises coming from the cave underneath the dam. Someone else saw shadows moving inside the cave, but it was unclear whether it was a school of fish or something else. The salvage went smoothly. The bodies and coffins were moved away after they were pulled out of the water, and there was nothing else for Chen Ge to do. After getting the police's permission, Chen Ge hailed a cab and left. He had not seen a scary scenario built underwater before, and he was curious about this newly unlocked scenario. At around 4 a.m., Chen Ge returned to his haunted house. He pushed open the door and rushed underground. Walking down the dark stairs, Chen Ge realized that there was another path between Muyang High School and Coffin Village. It could only allow two people to pass through it side by side. It extended into the depths of the underground and felt very stifling. The light was dim and the air was damp. Chen Ge could vaguely hear the sound of water ripples. At the end of the passage was a pitch-black surface of water, on which a small boat was floating. The boat was made of wood and could only seat two people at most. No oars. Chen Ge tossed the vat ghost into the water. To his surprise, the water was quite deep. Sitting on the boat, Chen Ge put his hand into the water and slowly rowed forward. This design is a bit crazy. To move the boat, one has to use their hands to paddle. If the monsters and ghosts hiding in the water come out at this time, how desperate would the people on the boat be? For safety reasons, Chen Ge decided to go to the prop room to make a small wooden pulp in case of emergency. Holding onto the wall, the boat continued to move forward. The scenario for Twin Water Ghost was only half the size of Muyang High School. This is a 2-star scenario after all. It can't be so simple, right? Chen Ge sat on the boat and used the flashlight on his phone. The vat ghost's head suddenly popped out from the water. He waved his hands and pointed at the water. You mean there's something underwater? Chen Ge thought about it and felt that was possible. The water was wide, and the boat did not have oars. The people on the boat could only use their hands to paddle, and they might be dragged off the boat by the things underwater. No matter what, safety was the most important thing. To ensure that no accidents would happen to the visitors, Chen Ge removed his shirt that was still wet and jumped into the water again. Using yin-yang vision, Chen Ge was shocked to discover that it was a whole different world underwater. The scenario was slanted. The deeper he went, the deeper the water became, and the more things there were. Near the entrance, there were things that one could see in daily life. There was an old sofa, a tilted table, and a broken lamp. It felt like several rooms had sunk underwater. Is this where the victims lived? The bottom of the river was filled with broken dolls. Broken faces were embedded at the bottom, staring at the boat on the surface. Further ahead of the doll fragment was a large number of coffins. They were stacked on top of each other, making the underwater terrain very complicated. Temporarily, this scenario cannot be open to the visitors. Without the necessary equipment, it's easy for accidents to happen. Running into scary things underwater was 10 times scarier than running into them on the surface, but unfortunately, the risk was too high. Chen Ge was a haunted house operator, and his definition was that of a service industry. Underwater scenarios were a good direction, but he had to wait for the necessary equipment before he could try it. It's not completely useless. In the future, I can place all the water ghosts that I catch here. Chen Ge and the vat ghost worked together to push the boat to the shore. Then, he hugged his jacket and walked back the way he had come. You can stay here for now. The vat ghost was a coward. If he was given a water vat, he could stay inside it for several years. His personality was not good for his appearance. If you see the visitors sneaking in, remember to stop them from leaving. If they fall into the water, you have to save them, understand? After giving the order to the vat ghost, Chen Ge was still worried. He ran to the props room to build a barricade and placed it at the entrance. Who would have thought my haunted house would have an underwater scenario? Chen Ge looked at his haunted house, and a sense of pride rose in his heart. With his help, the haunted house had a hospital, a school, a village, a residential area, and now even a man-made lake. The haunted house has only been upgraded to Maze of Terror. If I continue to unlock it, will my haunted house become an underground city made up of endless ghost stories and scary legends? When he first obtained the black phone, Chen Ge had seen the term Castle of Nightmare in the mission description, and he believed that was the final state of the haunted house. After dealing with all that, Chen Ge placed the wet clothes in the bathroom. After a quick wash, he returned to the staff break room. Just as he was about to go to bed, his cell phone vibrated. Li Jung was calling him at this time. Inspector Li, how is it? Quote, we've found Huang Ling's husband. Li Jung's tone was not that friendly. They seemed to have run into some trouble. Where did you find him? Chen Ge suddenly sat up, and that gave the white cat, who had just crawled up to him, quite a fright. We checked the surveillance along the way and finally found him at the entrance of White Dragon Cave Tunnel. At the time, he was already unconscious. White Dragon Cave Tunnel. Chen Ge thought the name was familiar, and his eyes slowly widened. White Dragon Cave Tunnel was the abandoned tunnel that he had visited during his nightmare mission. It was there that he had seen his younger self being murdered. Chen Ge did not expect Huang Ling's husband to have fainted at the entrance of the White Dragon Cave Tunnel. The shadow is extremely cunning. He might have sensed something and escaped early, but why would he go to the White Dragon Cave Tunnel? Is he giving me a hint, or is there something he needs in the tunnel? Huang Ling's husband is unconscious outside the tunnel. Does this mean that he has been abandoned by the shadow? Perhaps the shadow has a spare body in the tunnel. Several questions appeared in his mind, but Chen Ge could not understand them. He looked at the time and said to Li Jung, Inspector Li, can I go and ask him a few questions? We are at the hospital. The doctor is examining Jia Ming's body. He is unconscious and confused. I'm afraid we won't be able to get anything out of him for now. Then, can I go see him? Chen Ge wanted to personally confirm whether the shadow was still with Jia Ming or not. After getting Li Jung's permission, Chen Ge changed his clothes and rushed to the People's Hospital. Throughout the night, Chen Ge went in and out of the park a few times. At first, the guard greeted him, but later on, even the guard felt tired. At around 6 in the morning, Chen Ge arrived at the People's Hospital. There were 2 rooms with police officers standing at the entrance. He was about to approach when he was stopped. I'm looking for Captain Li Jung from the police station. I talked to him on the phone earlier. Chen Ge gave Chen Ge Li Jung's name. One of the officers thought that Chen Ge looked familiar. After looking at him for a while, he recognized Chen Ge. Captain Li told me, follow me. The officer brought Chen Ge to the first room from the left. Jia Ming is in this room. His mental state is unstable, so don't say anything to agitate him. Understood. Chen Ge glanced at the room next to him. Jia Ming is in this room. Who is in that room? His wife, Huang Ling. We went to Huang Ling's house first tonight and found that Huang Ling's condition was very strange. It was like she had taken some kind of medicine, so we brought her to the hospital. Thank you for your hard work. Chen Ge gently pushed the door open. Li Jung and another policewoman were sitting 1 meter away from the bed, talking to the person on the bed. Hearing the sound of the door being opened, everyone in the room looked towards the door. Li Jung and the policewoman knew that Chen Ge was coming, so they were very calm. However, just as Li Jung was about to greet Chen Ge, Ji Yuming suddenly screamed. His face was pale, and he jumped to the other side of the bed. Agitated, he pointed at Chen Ge with a trembling finger. Ghost. Ghost. He's a ghost. Quote. The needle used for the transfusion was pulled out, but Jia Ming did not seem to feel any pain at all. He looked at Chen Ge, and his eyes were filled with fear. The few people in the room did not expect such a turn of events. Li Jung called the doctor over, and the few of them worked together to pin Jia Ming down on the bed to regain control of him. Do you need a tranquilizer? The doctor asked Li Jung, and Li Jung shook his head. He was curious why Jia Ming would have such a huge reaction when he saw Chen Ge. After Jia Ming calmed down, Chen Ge sat down on the chair. Strangely enough, ever since he entered the room, Jia Ming's eyes had been fixed on him. Whenever he got close to the bed, Jia Ming would run away like a frightened cat. All right, with us here, he won't be able to harm you. Other than that, I can tell you for sure that he is a human, not a ghost. Li Jung had Chen Ge sit down next to him. What's going on? Chen Ge was confused. He used his yin-yang vision to study Jia Ming. There was not a trace of yin energy on the man, and he looked no different from a living person. If the ghost was not on him, had it left, or was it hiding in his shadow? When Chen Ge came out, he did not bring his backpack with him. He kept his guard up around Jia Ming. Ever since Chen Ge entered the room, the atmosphere had changed. Li Jung rubbed his temples, and his bloodshot eyes looked at the two people who were staring at each other. Both of you, please calm down. Seeing that Jia Ming's emotions were slowly calming down, he had the doctor go deal with the wound on the back of his hand and remove all the sharp objects and fragile objects from the bed. Tell me, why did you call him a ghost? Have you seen him before? Li Jung had interrogated many criminals before, and Jia Ming's reaction earlier did not look like he was faking it. Jia Ming did not dare speak, and his eyes darted around. Finally, under Li Jung's interrogation, he said, I saw him killed with my own eyes. I was killed. Not only Li Jung, even Chen Ge himself was shocked. He stayed inside the haunted house during the day and occasionally went out at night. He had been alive and well, so how could he have been killed? But he's right here. Are you hallucinating? When a person is under high stress or when their emotions are unstable, it is very easy for this to happen. After all, most of the time, our brain will only allow us to see what we want to see. Li Jung tried to analyze the situation from a professional perspective. He is not a human, trust me. He is very dangerous. He is really a ghost that comes to take our lives. Once Chen Ge's name was mentioned, Jia Ming's emotions immediately became agitated. He will kill me. If I stay too close to him, something bad will happen. I will die, no. Everyone in this room will die. Quote. Jia Ming's voice was very loud, and everyone in the other rooms could hear him. Li Jung and the doctor in the room frowned. It is not a good idea to let him keep shouting like that. I suggest we inject him with some tranquilizer first. The doctor suggested again, but it was still rejected by Li Jung. This experienced officer had been observing Jia Ming's tone and expression, including the direction in which the man's pupils moved when he spoke, but the result surprised him. Jia Ming did not appear to be lying. Hearing what Jia Ming said, Chen Ge did not argue immediately. Instead, he looked at Jia Ming with amusement. This reaction made Li Jung quite speechless. Normally, if a living person sitting next to him was told by a suspect that he was already dead, Li Jung would definitely laugh it off and then drag the suspect to see a psychiatrist. However, when this happened to Chen Ge, Li Jung's heart was pounding. The man next to him had his own personal section in the police station's case file storage room. He had helped the police solve a murder case before, and he was practically walking side by side with death. However, this did not mean that he suspected Chen Ge was already dead. He merely had a feeling that this case might lead to something even scarier. You said that I will kill you. Then what is my motive? When a person was suddenly spooked, their body would react uncontrollably. On this point, Chen Ge was an expert. When he walked through the door, his eyes fell on Jia Ming. The man's expression was one of extreme fear. Be it his expression or tone, they were very real, but when Chen Ge looked at him, he felt quite uncomfortable. There was a slight difference between Jia Ming's reaction and the reaction of the other visitors at the haunted house. If one was not used to scaring people, it would have been hard to tell. With this in mind, the way that Chen Ge looked at Jia Ming changed, from kindness to malice. You said that I will kill you, so you have to give me a reason to kill you, right?